And hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on KXAN Live. This is week 10 of our high school football preview. And we've got a pretty big game tonight on KBVO, our game of the week. It's going to maybe unmuddy the waters a little bit in District 6A25, but then again, who knows, because those waters are pretty muddy. Here to talk about it is, of course, KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. Him and Keith Moreland will be calling the game tonight. Manor versus Westview, 7 p.m.
Westwood.
Or Westwood. Westview was a high school I covered in Oregon. I knew I would do that eventually. I knew I would do that.
Yeah, it's hard. I know.
Manor versus Westwood. There we go. 7 p.m. Kelly Reeves, Palestine Palmer, whatever name you want to call it. Let's just get right into the standings because this is just bananas.
Yeah, Vandergrift is clear and cut, but then wide open. And, talking to the coaches, Anthony Wood, the Westwood coach, he told me we can't get in tonight, but we can get a lot closer. I think if Manor loses, that kind of seals their fate, sitting there at 2-4. But it's a nice turnaround for Westwood. It's been a while since they've been in the postseason. But yeah, all you have to do is look at after Vandergrift, every team other than Cedar Ridge still has some hope to get into the postseason, which is pretty amazing in one of those huge districts.
Yeah, and last week Westwood beat Westwood. I got it right that time. Westwood beat Stony Point 49-20. They've got Vandergrift left next week. To finish.
So they better win tonight.
So they got to seal the deal tonight because trying to beat the Vipers is a tough customer. Manor fell to Vista Ridge last week, 36-16. They've got Stony Point next week to finish out the regular season. Roger, kind of seems like this game is going to be one with the offensive lines and the running backs because both teams incredible in the backfield. Westwood's Damani Stewart, he's got almost 1,500 yards, 21 touchdowns. Lit Stony Point up last week for 4 touchdowns. And Manor's Titus Petaway, he's down for almost 1,400 yards and 19 touchdowns in the max prep stats. But Manor hasn't entered 2 of their games. So Titus Petaway is yet another stud running back from Manor. Roger, kind of seems like this is the way this one's going to go.
Yeah, you look at Manor, they've obviously got Taj Brooks, who's at Texas Tech, Quentin Joyner at USC, and now Titus Petaway. Westwood's story is a little different with Damani Stewart. He's a young man that moved in from Jamaica and didn't play football until a couple of years ago, and now everyone's starting to know he's got great size. He's kind of that prototypical 5'11", over 200 pounds. Same with Petaway. Petaway's a little bit taller. But Manor's beat up, Billy. Their offensive line, they're trying to fight through some injuries. They just don't have the numbers in a 25-6A district like most of these teams. James Keller told me they're at 38 on the roster, which is a really small number. You got a lot of guys playing both ways. That's tough enough early in the season, but now you're in your 9th game of the season to have to play both ways. So it should be interesting tonight. And, man, after what we had last week, I don't try to predict anything with what Leander and Hendrickson gave us last week. So should be fun. Looks like the rain's out. Beautiful setting out at Kelly Reeves, and hopefully these teams put on a good show for us tonight.
Yeah, that Leander Hendrickson game last week was wild. that was pretty crazy. Now, before we got going here, we were kind of going over some enrollment numbers, trying to figure out of 25, District 25, who would go D1, D2. It looks like Round Rock, their population is almost 4,000.
If they get in, they're always D1.
If they get in, they're always D1.
Yep.
Westwood, if they get in, looks like they'll also be D1, which sends Vandergrift down to D2, where they were last year, where they met DeSoto in the state final.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're fine with that. That avoids a potential Westlake matchup before they get to state. But the fly in the ointment there could be McNeil. If McNeil gets in along with Round Rock, then Vandergrift would be a Division I, depending on what happens with Vista Ridge. So Vista Ridge and McNeil kind of hold the fate of Vandergrift. If those two are in, Vandergrift has a bigger enrollment. If it's Westwood and Round Rock, Vandergrift will stay D2. If it's Stony Point and Round Rock, then Vandergrift will stay D2. So a lot of cards to be shuffled. I'm sure Drew Sanders, the head coach at Vandegrift, just wants to win 2 games, have a perfect season, and figure it out. And let's be honest, we've seen them play. I think they can go toe to toe with anybody in the state.
Yeah, no, they definitely they could compete at D1 if they ended up there. That is for sure. Now moving over to our game Friday night, KXAN.com. The last KXAN.com game of the season. It's gone by so fast.
Yeah, week 10 of 11. That's right.
Wild. Bowie and Westlake are playing. It's the last game on KXAN.com because Westlake plays Thursday next week, and that'll be on KBVO. So let's just go to the 6A 26 standings. Westlake, the class of the district, as usual, 8-0, 6-0. This district's a little more clear-cut than 25.
That's right. Lake Travis and Westlake are going to be D1. Dripping Springs will be D2. And then, it looks like if Bowie can, they're going to have a tough time, obviously, tonight, or rather, against Westlake. But then they close it out. Am I right about that?
They play tomorrow.
They play tomorrow, yeah. So figure if they don't upset Westlake, see how it shakes out. But they have that win over Johnson, so that's the big tiebreaker for Bowie. And how about Dripping Springs? Now 2 years in a row, they knock off Lake Travis in the regular season.
Yeah, so that big win for the Tigers, and they're, last year, the first year in 6A, maybe some folks didn't know what to expect, but I think folks around here knew the Tigers were for real.
Yeah, and they had the quarterback last year, Austin Novosad, and so they were really good. But they've had Galen Zimmerman. You always say build a program. If you're relying on one player, well, they're gonna come and go. But it looks like he's built a program at Dripping Springs, so they look like they're built to last. And so that's added a different element to this district where for so many years it's come down to Lake Travis and Westlake since Lake Travis moved up to the biggest classification.
Give those standings again real quick. Westlake at the top, Dripping Springs 2, Lake Travis and Bowie right now tied for third, but Bowie's win over Johnson there is kind of the big tiebreaker there in case there's anything crazy for fourth place there. Now let's check out the Dave Campbell Texas Football Associated Press rankings. Got it.
Always fun to talk about. Means nothing,
fun.
Right?
When it doesn't mean a dang thing, but there is a cool little symbol next to number 17, Dripping Springs. They get back in the rankings after being out for a couple weeks, which their win over Lake Travis sent the Cavaliers tumbling to number 22. Weiss, they're at 16. They moved up. It looks like a spot. I believe they were 17 last week. And then your Westlake, they're at 4. Vandegrift at 5. And then, the top 12 still say the same, except for Byron Nelson there from the DFW area. They moved up to 11. And while I'm on the subject of just teams in general, want to give a quick shout out to Hutto's Will Hammond and Alex Green. According to statistics on MaxPreps.com, which most schools are good about entering their stats. Obviously, we had Maynard not do that. But for the most part, the schools are pretty good about entering their stats, so we can kind of get a gauge of who's statistical leaders here in Texas. And Hutto Hippo, Will Hammond, leads Texas with 3,002 passing yards. That's according to Max Preps, obviously. And his favorite target, Alex Green, accounts for almost half of those yards. He has 1,509 receiving yards. That's a pretty big number for high school kids.
Yeah, they've been putting up big numbers all year. Now they're playing better. And they've got a shot in that 12-6A to get into the playoffs. Now they'll close with Weiss next week. That's actually on a Thursday night. How about Weiss? Quietly sitting there. You showed the rankings at 8-0, and again, they're a young 6A program. Again, that district, because it's a mixture of Austin, Central Texas, and the northern Temple, Waco, Central Texas, they kind of get lost in the shuffle. But Weiss sitting there at 8-0, the only team undefeated, obviously, in that district, and Midway sitting at 4-1, while Weiss is 4-0. So that's the ball game that we're looking at this week too. Weiss and Midway play Friday night at Midway, so that could be for a piece of the district championship before Weiss and Hutto play. But yeah, you got 3 6A Central Texas teams undefeated, one in each of the district with Westlake, Vandergrift, and Weiss. So pretty impressive what they've done at that program.
And is there anything Week 10 wise, Roger, that you want to point out? Any other games that sort of come to mind that might be good ones?
Yeah, I think. Let me take a look here. But you go to Austin, and tomorrow night there's a big one between Travis and McCallum. That obviously Travis and McCallum in that 5A district. LBJ is undefeated in district play. Actually, it's LBJ, and I get so many things going on here with the schedule this weekend. But I'll try to get it sorted out here. It is LBJ Eastside. So Travis and McCallum. Should have trusted my first guess. So McCallum 4-1 in district. Travis 3-2. Travis, if they can win that one, they're going to go to the playoffs. If McCallum wins, then all of a sudden that Lhasa Navarro game might have some playoff implications as well. Travis game's tonight, by the way, Travis and McCallum. So that's one that you look at a little bit. And then just that 25-6A, every game matters.
Yeah.
I mean, Round Rock's been struggling. They play winless Cedar Ridge. But if they trip up in that one, then, boy, Katie bar the door on how things shake out. McNeil, Stony Point play each other, so that's probably an elimination game. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Cedar Park, they get Leander. We mentioned Leander. They've got some momentum. That's that district rivalry. And if Cedar Park wins, they're safe at 4-2. But if Leander can make it 2 in a row, then that throws a little chaos in as well. So, yeah, a lot of studying the numbers and then looking at that last week's matchup to determine what this week means, and then looking ahead to next week and see how things might shake out. And then a week from Saturday, we can exhale and figure out the playoff matchups.
Yeah, we're getting down to it. So to recap, tonight, Roger and Keith will be out at the Palace. They're on Palmer. Manor versus Westwood. Playoff implications.
Yeah, for sure.
Look for both teams' big running backs to try to put their teams on their back and get them into the playoffs.
Anthony Wood, the Westwood coach, he's always got something up his sleeve. He ran a bit of a trick play last week on the first play of the game and hit it for a touchdown. And being on TV, might want to keep an eye on what he's got up his sleeve there, especially early in the ball game.
Always want to put in some kind of wrinkle, some kind of weird play there the week of, and anything that's not on tape.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then Friday on KXAN.com, we've got our last game of the season there, Bowie versus Westlake. That kicks at 7:30 from Chaparral Stadium, and the broadcast begins at 7:20 from our friends over at Westlake. Joe Taylor, Ricky Doyle on the call as usual. So we'll leave it there. That's Week 10 for you here in Central Texas high school football. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.